The fifth call from Richard Caldwell lit up my phone screen just as the sunlight caught the edge of my desk in downtown Boston. I didn't answer. I already knew what this was about. My father's tone, rigid and commanding, hadn't changed since the days I used to sit quietly at the oak kitchen table in Somerville, Georgia, completing homework while my younger sister, Bethany, received standing ovations for bringing home a participation trophy. Then came the email. Subject line, "Your sister needs you. Last chance." The message ended with a sentence that made my stomach turn. Bethany's wedding is the most important event of her life. Be there or forget about any future support. The voicemail that followed was even colder. My father's ultimatum was clear. If I didn't attend the 2-week wedding extravaganza back home, I could say goodbye to the family's financial backing. But what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I no longer needed their money. I built my own life. Quietly. Successfully. Without applause. As I glanced at my diploma, tucked behind old coats in the closet, I felt something shift. Maura Caldwell, Bachelor of Science, summa cum laude. 3 years collecting dust. Not anymore. This time, I wasn't going home to serve anyone's script. I was going so they could finally see the woman they chose not to see. The drive into Somerville was a strange blend of nostalgia and detachment. The rental car crunched down the gravel driveway of the house I once called home. It didn't feel like home anymore. Not with white roses draped over every porch post and ivory fabric swaying in the breeze like a magazine ad. A glossy wooden sign by the entrance read, "Bethany and Cole, a forever love." The front door flew open before I even reached the steps. "Maura, finally," my mother, Linda Caldwell, said with a sigh that landed somewhere between relief and reprimand. Her hug was polite and practiced, more obligation than affection. "So, you decided to support your sister after all?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She was already sweeping me inside with a to-do list in hand. Inside, the house didn't resemble the one I grew up in. Every surface was buried beneath ribbons, party favors, seating charts, and monogrammed candles. The scent of vanilla candles and fresh paint nearly choked out anything familiar. It wasn't a home. It was a set, constructed meticulously for Bethany's big performance. Dad was the next to appear, stepping out of his study with reading glasses perched on his nose and a clipboard in hand. "Good. You're here," he said, not even pretending to hide the relief in his voice. "We need programs folded, gift bags packed. Bethany needs all this done by 4. "I just got in the door," I muttered. "And now you've got something useful to do," he replied flatly. Before I could argue, a voice sliced through the air. "No, no, no," I said, cascading arrangements, not clustered. Bethany descended the staircase like a Broadway star mid-rehearsal, a phone glued to her ear and a flawless blowout that clearly took hours. She spotted me and held up the universal one-finger sign for wait. "This is literally ruining everything," she snapped into the phone. "Fix it." "I don't care how." She turned to me with a dramatic sigh. "Thank God you're here. The caterer is threatening to walk, and Mom's no help with the seating chart." "Nice to see you too, Bethany," I said, setting down my bag. "Cole's planning a surprise for the reception," she continued breathlessly. "I need to make sure the colors match the centerpieces. Everything has to be perfect." No one asked how I'd been, where I'd been, what I'd done in the 3 years since I left. "Cole?" I asked, partly out of curiosity, partly to steady my irritation. "Her fiancé," my mother chimed in. "You'll meet him at dinner. He's wonderful." Bethany beamed. "Brilliant investor. Big into crypto. He's already secured $500,000 in funding for some revolutionary blockchain venture." Dinner came, and Cole Harrington arrived right on schedule. He was tall, sharp-suited, charming, the kind of man who probably rehearses his smile in the mirror. He gripped my hand a little too firmly. "So the mysterious older sister finally appears," he grinned. "Beth says you're some kind of tech whiz hiding in the city." "I'm a product analyst," I replied, neutral. "Ooh, serious stuff," he winked. I've got friends developing an AI trading platform. We should talk shop sometime. During dinner he talked. Crypto this. Private equity that. Exclusive opportunities that only existed through his network. My father hung on every word. What exchanges are you using? Asked casually. Cole's smile flickered. Oh, mostly private platforms. Exclusive partnerships. You know, insider stuff. And your company is based where? We're decentralized. That's the beauty of blockchain. My mother shifted in her seat. My father gave me a warning glance. Maura, he said lowly, not everyone wants to talk numbers over pot roast. But I wasn't here for pot roast. I was here because something didn't sit right. I've spent my career spotting red flags. And every time Cole opened his mouth, I saw a dozen more. The next morning, while the house buzzed with talk of floral arrangements and seating charts, I slipped into Dad's study under the pretense of helping with programs. What I found instead, half hidden beneath catalogs and envelopes, was a folder marked refinancing. The family home, long paid off, now had a fresh mortgage. Dated just 3 weeks ago. Withdrawn amount: $15,000. Memo: investment capital. Co-signed Richard Caldwell. And suddenly the picture sharpened. The man who once refused to buy me a $75 calculator for school had just bet the house, literally, on Cole Harrington. And I wasn't about to let history repeat itself. Not with Bethany. Not with anyone. That evening, after Cole's crypto monologue over dinner, I couldn't shake the sense of déjà vu. The charm, the smooth sales pitch, the vague promises. It all felt too slick. I've seen this before. Not just in my job as a product analyst, where I review emerging fintech products and investment schemes, but in the exact tone that grifters use when selling dreams on borrowed time. While the rest of the family was obsessing over linen colors and signature cocktails, I slipped into my father's study again under the pretense of helping organize wedding programs. The room smelled the same, old wood and faint dust, lined with worn business books he hadn't touched since the 90s. But it wasn't the books that caught my eye. Half tucked beneath a stack of bridal catalogs was a manila folder labeled simply, Refinancing Caldwell Residence. My fingers tensed as I pulled it free. The property I grew up in had been fully paid off for years. But now there it was. A second mortgage, freshly signed just 3 weeks prior. The amount: $15,000. Marked as investment capital. Co-signed by Richard Caldwell, my father. This was the same man who once lectured me for asking for a $75 calculator in high school. The same man who now blindly invested thousands into Cole's too-good-to-be-true venture. I pressed my fingers to my temples. I knew what I was seeing. The false security. The urgency. The insider language. The total lack of verifiable company information. These weren't just red flags, they were the whole parade. The next morning, I stood beside my Aunt Helen in the garden, pretending to admire the flower arrangements she was helping organize. You see it too, don't you? I asked quietly. She didn't look at me, but her voice was low and steady. Mr. Jenkins down the street lost 30 grand last year. Same kind of investment pitch. Guy disappeared before the ink dried. When I heard Cole talking, it sounded real familiar. I nodded slowly. He's too polished. His story doesn't add up. He won't listen to me, she murmured, meaning my father. Says I'm jealous of Cole's success. Says you probably are too. The word stung but didn't surprise me. My father has always found it easier to believe in fantasy than to confront reality. Later that afternoon, I stopped by Rosie's Cafe, the same little diner I'd escaped to in high school when home got too heavy. I opened my laptop in the vinyl booth, sipping black coffee as I ran a background search. Within minutes, everything clicked into place. Cole Harrington wasn't real. Not entirely. His LinkedIn profile was shallow, just like his company's non-existent web presence. But it was the photo reverse search that did it. He'd used the same headshot under different names. Edward Lambert, Ethan Lewis, Elliot Brady. 3 aliases, same face, same story. Charming investor gets engaged, lures the family into a high-yield investment, then vanishes just days before the wedding. As if summoned by fate, Margie, the cafe waitress who'd worked there since I was a teen, passed by and paused at my screen. "That him?" she asked. He nodded. "Why?" "He dated my cousin, called himself Edward. Took off with her savings and her engagement ring. Vanished a week before the wedding. 2 hours later, I sat across from Karen, one of his former fiancés. Her hands shook as she flipped through a binder of police reports and photos. "I thought I was special," she whispered. "He made me feel chosen." I listened as she described how Elliot or Cole had promised her a future, only to rob her of everything. Offshore accounts, vanished heirlooms, bank transfers to nowhere. When I left the cafe, the sky was already bruising with twilight. But my path had never been clearer. Bethany's wedding was just 5 days away. And if I didn't stop this now, she'd be next in a long line of women who thought they were building a life, only to be left with a broken heart and an empty bank account. Not this time. Not if I had anything to say about it. That evening, I stood in my childhood living room, not as a daughter desperate for approval, but as a woman holding the truth no one wanted to face. "I need to speak with everyone," I said, steadying my voice as my fingers clutched the folder of evidence I had spent days compiling. My mother, Linda, folded her arms. My father, Richard, settled into his favorite recliner with a drink in hand. Bethany arrived last, mascara smudged from some bridal disaster, probably another font issue. And finally, Cole strolled in with a bottle of wine, all charm and calm. "What's this about?" Ed asked. I laid the folder on the coffee table. "It's about Cole." His eyes narrowed. Cole raised an eyebrow, still wearing that politician's smile. "I've done some research," I began. "Cole Harrington isn't who he says he is. He's also gone by Edward Lambert and Ethan Lewis. In each case, he posed as an investor, got engaged, convinced families to hand over their savings, and disappeared before the wedding." Bethany scoffed. "Seriously? Are you kidding me right now?" Linda sighed, already tired. "Maura, not this again." But I pressed forward, passing out copies of police reports, photos, and timelines connecting Cole's aliases to women he defrauded in 3 different states. Same face. Same story. Same ending. Cole chuckled softly. "This is clearly a misunderstanding. I've got one of those faces, I guess." I turned to Bethany, locking eyes with her. "I found a woman named Karen, his former fiancé. He left her 3 days before the wedding and took everything. Her savings. Her grandmother's ring. Gone." My sister looked away. "You've always hated that I'm happy," she muttered. "You can't stand that someone actually loves me." My throat tightened. "This isn't jealousy. This is about protecting you." My father slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. You've said your piece. Now stop trying to ruin your sister's future with this garbage." "Look at the mortgage," I shot back. "You took out a second loan on the house. For what? An exclusive opportunity that doesn't exist." Richard's jaw clenched. "Cole guaranteed 20% returns. No legitimate investment guarantees that," I snapped. "You're risking everything on a con man." Linda looked down at her lap, suddenly quiet. Cole stepped forward, his voice perfectly smooth. "I understand you're concerned for your family. But these accusations are harmful and false." It was clear. They weren't listening. Not really. They didn't want the truth. They wanted the fairy tale. I sat back, watching the scene play out like a movie I already knew the ending to. Cole, calm and unbothered. Bethany, red-eyed and furious. My father, stubborn to a fault. My mother, emotionally absent, caught between pride and fear. So I stood. "Fine. You don't believe me. Then let me tell you who I really am." They looked up. "I never went to community college. I never moved back home. I left for Boston with 2 suitcases and a full scholarship. I graduated top of my class at the University of Chicago. I've been working as a product analyst ever since. 6 figures. Health benefits. My own apartment. I've built a life. Not that you ever cared to ask. Silence. Bethany blinked. So what? You're still trying to ruin my wedding. No, I said gently. I'm trying to save you. But if you won't listen, I'm done trying. I gathered the documents and paused one last time. When he disappears, when the money's gone and your trust is shattered, remember someone warned you. I walked out through the same door I'd once snuck through at 17. Only this time my head was held high. I had spent my entire childhood trying not to take up too much space. Trying to be polite, quiet, useful, never too loud, never too proud. Always the responsible one, while Bethany soaked up every ounce of attention simply for showing up. But as I stood in that living room, among the people who raised me and still didn't truly see me, I realized something. I didn't need their validation anymore. I've told you everything, I said quietly. Now you get to decide what to do with it. My father, Richard, shook his head, disbelief painted across his face. You think you're better than us now? Because of a fancy degree and some big city job? No, I replied, voice calm but firm. I think I stopped letting myself be invisible. Bethany's lip trembled, more with rage than tears. You always made me feel like I wasn't good enough. I almost laughed. That's rich, Beth. I spent years earning straight A's, winning academic scholarships, only to be told, "That's nice, honey," while the whole house clapped when you brought home a ribbon for best smile in 2nd grade. The silence was thick. My mother looked like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. Maybe she was remembering the years I begged for just a sliver of attention, or maybe she still didn't understand what I had sacrificed just to keep the peace. You don't get to rewrite history, Dad barked. I'm not rewriting it, I said. I'm finally telling it. Cole stood by the fireplace, arms folded, playing the victim so well you'd think he rehearsed it. All this drama, is it really about me? Or is this just some unresolved family tension? That's what you do, isn't it? I said to him. You slip into cracks, emotional ones, financial ones, and you widen them until families break apart. Then you disappear. Bethany stepped forward. Even if what you're saying is true, which I don't believe, it doesn't give you the right to sabotage my happiness. I'm not trying to sabotage anything. I'm trying to stop a disaster before it happens. You're 5 days away from marrying a man who's lied about who he is, has a trail of broken hearts behind him, and is now tied to Dad's 2nd mortgage and Mom's inheritance. This isn't a storybook ending. It's a setup. Her arms folded tightly across her chest. You're just bitter. You can't stand that someone finally chose me. There it was again. The same old wound. And yet, it didn't sting like it used to. No, Beth, I said softly. I'm not bitter. I'm free. They didn't say anything. Not a word. Just stared as I gathered the papers, tucked them back into my folder, and turned toward the door. You'll regret this, Dad warned. Walking out on your family. I turned back one last time. What I regret is spending so many years hoping you'd care enough to ask who I really was. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry in the car. I drove back to my hotel with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Later that night, as I sat alone under the warm light of a reading lamp, I pulled out the journal I hadn't touched since college. On the first fresh page I wrote, "Sometimes the ones who should have seen you never do. Sometimes, being invisible teaches you how to become undeniable." And for the first time in a long time, I didn't write for anyone else to read it. I wrote it for me. 2 days before the wedding, I received a text from my aunt. He left. Bethany's inconsolable. Your father won't talk. Just like that it happened. Cole, if that was even his real name, vanished. No note. No farewell. No explanation. He took with him more than just promises. He took my parents' savings, the 2nd mortgage funds, my mother's inheritance. But worst of all, he left behind the kind of silence that only follows betrayal, the kind that no apology can erase. And even though I had seen it coming, it still hurt. I sat in the same vinyl booth at Rosie's Cafe. hands wrapped around a chipped ceramic mug of black coffee. The sun peeked through the dusty window, glinting off the corner of my laptop. On screen, a fraud alert submission confirmation blinked back at me, a final step in a long, painful journey to do what was right. I told them. I showed them. They didn't believe me until it was too late. Bethany had always been the one everyone adored. She could do no wrong, even when the red flags were glaring. But this time she had believed in the wrong person. And I had tried to save her. Later that day my phone buzzed with a second message. "I'm sorry." No punctuation. No explanation. Just 2 small words from Bethany. Maybe it was a start. But I didn't reply. Not yet. I wasn't ready to play the forgiving sister who swoops back in after being dismissed and insulted. For once, I was honoring what I needed. And I needed space. When I returned to my apartment in Boston, I did something I had never done before. I hung up my college diploma. Framed, centered, and glowing under the light on my wall. Bachelor of Science, University of Chicago, summa cum laude. It had sat hidden in a closet for 3 years, buried beneath coats and silence and shame. Not anymore. This time it wasn't just a piece of paper. It was proof. That I had climbed without their applause. That I had succeeded without their support. That I had seen myself, even when they didn't. I opened the journal I had abandoned years ago and began to write. Sometimes you have to be the one to speak the truth. Even if your voice shakes. Even if no one claps. Even if it means walking alone. And that's exactly what I had done. I had stood in a room full of people I once loved and chosen the truth over comfort, over approval, over belonging. Didn't make me feel heroic. Made me feel exposed. Exhausted. But it also made me feel free. Because for the first time in my life I had not disappeared. I had not shrunk. I had not chosen silence. And maybe that's the lesson, for anyone who has ever been overlooked, underestimated, or ignored. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't have to wait for applause to speak the truth. And you are not selfish for walking away when no one wants to hear it. The world doesn't always reward quiet strength. But that doesn't mean it isn't strength. So if you've ever been the only one to see the danger, to name the problem, to sound the alarm, and you did it anyway, knowing they might not believe you, then this moment, this story is for you. Family. We grow up believing it's where we'll always be seen, heard, and held. But sometimes family is where you learn how to disappear. That's a lesson I wish I didn't have to learn, but one I carry now like a badge of survival. For most of my life, I chased my parents' approval the way a child chases sunlight through a stained glass window. Always in view, never quite within reach. My sister Bethany was the golden one. She didn't have to try. She simply existed, and the world bent to adore her. Meanwhile, I earned straight A's, graduated with honors, and built a life from scratch in Boston, only to remain invisible. Even when I returned home, holding irrefutable proof that her fiancé was a con artist, I wasn't met with gratitude. I was met with suspicion, with anger, with rejection. My father told me I was bitter. My mother asked me to be quiet for the sake of peace. Bethany, in tears, accused me of ruining her happiness. And yet I didn't regret a word I said. Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is speak the truth no one else will. Even when it costs you their affection. Even when it means standing alone. What this journey taught me, more than any degree or paycheck, was that being biologically related doesn't guarantee emotional support. It doesn't guarantee recognition. It doesn't even guarantee love. And for many of us, that realization comes late, heavy, and sharp. But here's the gift hidden within that pain. When you stop chasing love where it's not freely given, you begin to find it in the one place it was meant to live all along. Within yourself. Hanging my diploma on the wall wasn't just about pride. It was about reclaiming my narrative. About saying, I was always enough, even if they never said so. If this story touched something in your heart, if you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or undervalued by the people closest to you, then know this: you are not alone. Share your story in the comments below. Let your truth be heard. And if you'd like to hear more stories about healing, strength, and becoming who you were always meant to be, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your voice matters. And it's never too late to be seen.